Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Star Wars HyperReal Black Series figure unboxing and review video. Now today we're going to be taking a look at the second figure in the HyperReal line, being of course the Bespin Luke Skywalker. Now for those of you who may not be fully aware of what this HyperReal line is, go ahead, pause this video right now and go and check out the Darth Vader review, who was the first figure in the line. He will be making a cameo appearance in this video, but that will give you a little bit more context. This line is basically Hasbro's attempt at a high-end figure line, a proper, fully seamless body with a metal endoskeleton, and this Luke Skywalker is their first figure that features a proper head sculpt. Compared to the Vader who had a helmeted look, it's pretty easy to nail a helmet versus a proper head sculpt itself, so fingers crossed this Bespin Luke is equally as good as that Darth Vader. Now I picked this up from Zing Pop Culture. I'm sure you can find this on a bunch of different stores right now. It's just hitting, it actually just released today for us locals in Australia, but it's been out for quite some time, a couple of weeks at least, in the United States. Either way, what we're going to do now is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. And here we have the box art for the HyperReal Luke Skywalker. And as you can see, a big picture of Luke up the front here. This is pretty much the exact same packaging layout as we saw with Darth Vader, except this time we have Luke. A really nice glossy image, although I'm not a fan of this sort of cartoonized picture of the head sculpt on there. This is not supposed to be this sort of cartoonized look. It's supposed to be a more realistic version of Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, and it does actually come with two different head sculpts, which you see on the box here. And it is pointing out seamless joints, and then on the back you can see a nice cutaway of the metal endoskeleton, so it does look very heavy duty. That pose looks really darn good. Now the cool thing about the HyperReal series is you don't actually have to fully open them to appreciate the figures themselves. You can have it on display just like that with the window, and you can still see the figure quite nicely, as well as all the accessories and a bunch of poses as well. But we're not here to do that, we're here to open the figure himself. Now a lot of people did ask when I reviewed the Vader whether or not that body will hold up, because it is fully silicone, and let me just say mine is perfectly fine. No cracks, no tears or anything like that, and you will see him a little bit later in this video. But here we have Luke himself, and he does look pretty darn good, if not a little tiny bit glossy, but I guess that's just a byproduct of the silicone itself, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. He also does come with a display base. Now in the other side of the packaging, because they did decide to split it into two, it does open in two separate sections, you do get the rest of the accessories, which is a pretty slim little tray here. You get the alternate head sculpt, a bunch of hands, and the lightsaber blade as well. So pretty darn light on accessories. Either way, what we're going to do now is get all of the accessories that he does come with laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all of the accessories that come with Luke. Now as you can see, he comes with a fair amount of stuff, but mostly in the hand department. He comes with a bunch of different styles of hands. But let's take a look at the display base first. Now as you can see, it is another piece, a continuation if you will, of the carbon freezing chamber diorama display base. We got one with Vader, now we're getting another one with Luke, and they do interconnect. Now fingers crossed we are getting a Han, a Leia, a Chewie, a C-3PO, and also a Boba Fett. I'd even be down for a bunch more, but if we're sticking with Empire, those are the ones that I really be after, so fingers crossed we do get them, because it'd be really nice to see a big, complete carbon freezing chamber diorama. Stormtrooper would be very, very nice as well. But either way, on the underside you can see three little pegs and this little block piece. So basically what you do is you take this block piece, insert it on the side, it clips in quite nicely, and then you can connect all of the display bases. So while you're not using it, you can store it on the underside there. It's rather loose though, so it may go missing. Just be careful of that piece right there. These little pegs can be used to peg into any of these four spots there, and you can have either one or two characters on the display base at any given time. Now let's take a look at the lightsaber. Now this wouldn't be a Hasbro product without at least one bent accessory, and happens to be the lightsaber blade itself. Don't worry, with some heating you can get this straightened out just fine, but fresh out of the package it is definitely a little bit warped. Now in terms of the hilt itself, it kind of does look like Anakin Skywalker's one, which yes I know technically it's supposed to be Luke's as well, but I don't know if the design is 100% spot on to Empire Strikes Back. Let me know down in the comments below. I haven't done my Luke Skywalker Anakin lightsaber research just yet, so do let me know if this is 100% accurate, but either way, it definitely looks the part and it gets the job done. Now that little D-ring clip on the bottom there isn't movable, it's a fixed piece, but you can use it to attach to Luke's belt. Now he also does come with his little blaster that looks an awful lot like Han's, except the scope is on the side and it's a little bit chunkier than Han's. Han's is a little bit longer, it's also on the side. I don't know why I said it's exclusive to Luke's, but as you can see the paintwork paintwork is fairly nice. It's super tiny though, and it's very, very nicely weathered. In fact, maybe too weathered. It's especially on this side right here, a lot of silver dry brushing, but this side actually looks fairly decent, like worn, chipped away metal, and this can of course be holstered onto the side of Luke's belt. Now he does come with 2 head sculpts on the figure, or I should say this one on the figure, this one's included in the box. As you can see, they are identical except for the hair. The hair is the only difference between the two, and the sort of messier hair version actually appears to be a little bit glossy under the studio lights, but trust me, in hand they're not anywhere near as glossy as what you're seeing on camera. And I have to say, for a relatively, and I know it's not all that inexpensive, but for a relatively inexpensive high-end style Hasbro figure, this actually isn't all that bad. And I'm talking about this sculpt right here. I like the hair, I like the expression, and it kind of does look like Mark Hamill, especially from that angle right there. It looks really, really good. So I'm actually impressed with what they've managed to do here. I was worried at first when we saw those cartoonized style pictures, but having this in hand, I really do think that this figure, if the rest of it is any good at least, is potentially worth the money. Now, he does come with a bunch of hands, but I picked one of the more exciting ones to show off. The sculpt on these are very, very strong. It looks very lifelike, very real, and I love the way it looks. Although, as far as I can tell, there is no paint on there. They are rather soft though, so they will go on the wrists fairly easily because the little port is super, super tiny. But either way, still be careful. So what we're going to do now, however, is get Luke himself out here and take a closer look. And here we have Luke himself standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. And I have to say, this figure actually doesn't look all that bad. I had my reservations when I saw the figure previews of it at all of the different toy fairs, but trust me, in hand, this thing really does look the part. It's not 100% flawless, and we'll get into those details in just a second, but literally just standing there with his arms down by his sides, he can get into a pretty natural stance. The head sculpt looks good, the accessories fit on the belt very nicely, and they look pretty darn seamless, as does of course the rest of the outfit. I didn't realize that I was after a fully seamless silicon-bodied Bespin Luke Skywalker until I got this one in hand, and now I really do think that this line has some credence. It really does deserve to be around. I hope that they make, as I said, a Boba Fett, a bunch of other characters, because I'm liking the way they're doing this style of articulation, of body style, and all of the little bits and pieces that go along with it, so I think it will really work for a bunch of other different characters, and I really do hope this line sticks around. Either way, what I'm going to do now is punch in and take a closer look at the details. And here we have the HyperReal Luke himself up close and personal, and I have to say, the figure actually doesn't look too bad at all. Obviously, you literally just saw it spinning around, so you kind of know what it looks like from all angles, but up close, it really does come together very, very well. Now, the interesting thing, again, is this entire figure is covered in silicone, so that means the entire torso, the arms, the legs, everything is that weird squishy material. I kind of like how it looks. Again, it's all seamless, so that's a real plus, but I do think this could have been made out of fabric. It would have made much more sense. Use a silicone body underneath. Sure, that works, but I think the outfit should have been fabric, because this really does have, and you can see up the top of the shoulders there, this weird sort of translucent glossy look, and I am worried for the subtle shading that's all over the entire thing here, because everyone knows the only thing that sticks to silicone is, well, silicone, so I don't think this paint is going to last the test of time. Now, the actual torso itself is separate from the pants. It's an actual overlay over the top. It's a bit weird how they do it, because it feels very, very thin and very, very flimsy, and it can get caught over the top of the belt, which is actually a floating piece, but because of the friction of the plastic over the actual rubber itself, again, it really struggles to move around to get it situated just right. Now, I do have one concern, and I don't know if it's actually a real concern or just for me personally, but every time I switch out the hands, I tend to grab onto this sleeve here, and it's a very, very thin, fragile piece of silicone, so you do have to be careful when you are actually moving the arms, removing the hands. It's a little bit too fragile in my personal opinion. Now, I do have one other gripe, and it's the fact that this little piece right here doesn't like to peg into its little port and stay there. It always sort of pops out, as you can see it there, because of the force of the gun pushing this piece out there. Either way, that's pretty much it for the complaints. When it comes to the actual belt itself, it looks really, really good. I like the fact that they've got this little faux piece that sticks out to kind of look like it's a little bit too long and it's hanging out towards the side there. Pretty sure that's accurate to the movie, and I love the way it looks. So too do I love the detail on the belt here. You can see it's nicely weathered. It's really nicely painted, especially on that belt buckle, and it extends throughout the entire thing. But the outfit itself it does appear kind of bland. I mean, there is very subtle shading here and there in all the crevices, but it's just that super subtle, and you don't really see it all that much. Again, I do think the outfit itself should have been made out of fabric. The boots, however, I do like them being made out of that silicone material. They move around very freely, you get a bunch of ankle articulation without having to really worry about them getting damaged. Again, my Darth Vader is totally fine, no issues at all with him, so this one hopefully will stand the test of time as well. Either way, what we're going to do now is do some quick side-by-side comparisons. And now for a quick side-by-side comparison, of course, next to the HyperReal Darth Vader. As you can see, the Vader is still absolutely enormous compared to Luke, as he should be, so that means that Luke is a little bit more of a smaller scale figure, which works perfectly fine for me. But I know a lot of people were hoping that the scale of the line would be a little bit bigger, me included. It would have been really nice to even get a very close to 1/6 scale, maybe 1/7 scale, or even maybe a little bit bigger. That would have been really nice as well. But either way, this is what we got, and I'm going to try and make the best out of it, put some nice poses together, because this is still a really nice figure, and both of these together make for a really awesome set. Just going over articulation on the HyperReal Luke Skywalker. Now, this is my personal copy of the figure. I paid for it with my own money. I'm not going to go as crazy as I'm sure you can with some of the joints. It's a seamless body. It is a silicone overstructure, so I do want to be careful. But if you get yours in hand and want to push the joints a little bit further than I'm willing to go, that's totally your call. But let's start off with the head sculpt itself. So it's done in a traditional, like, 1/6 scale style, except obviously in 1/9 scale. It's got the ball joint at the top of the neck and also one at the lower, so you do get a fairly decent range of motion. It's a little bit restricted because of the nature of this silicone upper torso. It's very dense, very thick there, so you will struggle to get it looking down, but looking up is just fine, and of course swivel and all the rest of it. Now the arms are very stiff, just like what we saw with Vader, and it's really interesting, again, just quickly noting that this is all silicone, it's all squishy, and it's all that same material, so it will have a little bit of hindrance, but it does very nicely get out of the way. So you get out, you get forward, and you do get a fairly decent bend at the elbow itself, a swivel at the bicep, which is ratcheted and very sturdy, and of course a traditional 1/6 scale, except again in 1/9 scale, joint at the wrist. Now in terms of the waist itself, you do get a really nice crunch, as you can see there, but it does reveal the inner structure, and you can see it's a double ball peg. You do get back as well, and of course side to side. You don't really have anything at the upper torso as far as I can tell. Now the legs themselves go forward to about there. It is very stiff in terms of how the metal skeleton on the inside can move. You do get it out to about there, again, very stiff as well. Then bending the knees, you do get a fairly decent bend on that, which pretty much goes all the way up. Swivel at the upper thigh, which is again ratcheted and very sturdy. And then for the ankle, you do have a really nice pivot and a bunch of range of motion, including a swivel. Just wrapping up on the Star Wars HyperReal Black Series Luke Skywalker. Now, I really do like what Hasbro have done here. This is definitely a step in the right direction. Is it 100% perfect? Is this the best Bespin Luke that we've gotten in anything other than 1/6 scale? I'm not sure that I can confidently say that. It's still very good, don't get me wrong. The accessories are great. I don't like the thickness of the lightsaber blade. It's far too thick. It's also warped fresh out of the box. The display base, it's kind of a little bit boring, and the head sculpts on the figure, while they are nicely sculpted, the paintwork does let it down ever so slightly. I think they could have gone all out, put all of their budget into the actual painting of the head sculpts, and they could have nailed it, because the sculpt definitely is there. The paintwork is just lacking, and maybe even added a little bit more paintwork to the messy hair head sculpt to kind of look like it was a little bit battle damaged, like we've seen with the DX07, because you want to have one head sculpt clean with the nice hair and one with the messy hair, so you can recreate that I am your father scene. That would be really fantastic, but unfortunately the sculpts are pretty much identical between the two, which either shows a lack of preparation on Hasbro's part, they wanted to rush this thing out there after they released their Vader, or a lack of foresight in the fact that people would be doing those poses with those two figures. Now, while I do still hope they continue this line, I want to see a Boba, especially. I would love to see that in this style. I do think that Hasbro has to make a couple of little improvements here and there to get this line just right. But either way, for a second figure in the line, I'm still very impressed. Now, I bought mine from Zing Pop Culture. I think you can still pick it up on eBay and other places like that, so definitely do some hunting. And also, if you are looking to chat figures, share photos of your collection, and also see what's coming up next on the channel, why not check out the link down in the description description below to head over to 6 Scale Network. It's right down there. Hit that link and come on over. Either way, that's about it. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.